So the first official Thomas & Friends train simulator came out recently, and it's kind of taken the internet by storm. I've seen so many people talk about and play this game, even people not deep into the fandom. I got the game about a week after it released, and within 24 hours I'd completed every story mission, every shunting challenge, found all the collectibles, and unlocked every achievement. Needless to say, I've been enjoying my time with the game. One of the things I found myself enjoying is the timetable mode. Here, you play through a series of missions where you drive the engines as if they were running a normal service. You'll have to complete your objectives while keeping to the schedule, letting passengers on and off, obeying signals, and other stuff like that. My favorite part is that while playing a mission, you can see the other engines moving about and keeping to their own timetable. And if you feel so inclined, you can play their missions and get their perspective. This got me curious about how each character's timetables overlap. While I'm taking Gordon to Vickerstown, what is Thomas up to? And while Diesel is shunting in the quarry, where's Percy? So I thought it'd be fun to combine all the timetables together and see what the engines get up to throughout the day. Before I get started, I just want to say that these timetables are not canon to any specific era of the franchise. I think it's safe to say that the game exists in a separate continuity that picks and chooses which aspects of the series to include. I mean, the game is based on a Railway series map, but uses locations from both the model and CGI series. The timetable that the game presents just don't cleanly line up with any era, whether it be the Railway series, the model series, or the CGI series. So rather than this being the definitive timetable that the engines routinely follow, it's best to think of this as a look into a single random day on the island of Sodor. Alright, so with that being said, let's get started. Our day starts bright and early at Tidmouth Sheds, where we'll find 6 useful engines all fast asleep. James is the first engine out of the shed, starting his day at 4:30. He'll make his way to Knapford Yard, where at 4:36 he'll collect a train of tankers and depart for Vickerstown. "30 minutes later at 5 o'clock, Diesel will leave Tidmouth going up Thomas's branch line, arriving at Farquhar Quarry at 5:28 to shunt trucks around. Percy is out and about by 5:18, with his first job being to collect the big engine's coaches. We know that Percy was promoted from pilot duties early in the series, but with the shortage of engines here, he seems to have returned to his old job. Percy will first collect the coaches for Emily's local train, and bring them to Knapford Station by 5:27. He'll then collect the coaches for Gordon's Express and have them at the platform by 5:36. After that, Percy will collect the coaches for his own train, arriving at the platform around 5:50. James will have reached Vickerstown by 5:24. He'll leave the tankers in the yard and spin around on the turntable before taking on his next job, the mail train. This is normally Percy's job, but with him being back on pilot duties, James is filling in. This train leaves Vickerstown at 5:50 and makes deliveries at every mainline station along the way until it reaches Knapford. At 5:46, Diesel makes his way back down to Farquhar, having finished his shunting. His next job is at Knapford Harbor, but must wait at Farquhar until Percy arrives. Percy is ready to depart Knapford at 6 o'clock. He is pulling the first passenger train of the day, the Quarryman Shuttle, which takes workmen directly up to Farquhar. The train reaches its destination by 6:12, and with the line now clear, Diesel can make his way to Knapford Harbor. After turning around, Percy will shunt his coaches into a siding and collect the brake van from the adjacent track. He will then travel up to the quarry at 6:24 to collect some trucks. Gordon is moving out of the sheds by 6:15. With the express already at the platform, he just needs to make his way to Knapford and back down onto his train. He is coupled up to the express by 6:23 and departs for Vickerstown at 6:30. The express will make stops at Wellsworth, Marin, Kelsthorpe Road, and Crovan's Gate, all before arriving at Vickerstown. Diesel arrives at Knapford Harbor by 6:26 and begins to assemble a train of vans. Meanwhile, Percy arrives at the quarry at 6:30. He'll back down onto a line of trucks that Diesel put together and depart for the harbor. By 6:38, James has finished his mail run and shunts his vans into the sidings at Knapford. He'll then navigate his way back to Tidmouth to find the coaches for his local train. Emily at 6:45 will leave the sheds for her local train, which stops at every mainline station before arriving at Vickerstown. She'll arrive at the platform at 6:52 and depart by 7 o'clock. After finding his coaches, James will get some time to rest as his train isn't due out until 8 o'clock, when Emily is making her return trip. Emily and James run identical services that alternate throughout the day, so when one engine is heading towards Vickerstown, the other will be heading back to Knapford. Thomas is the last engine out of the shed, leaving at 6:55. He'll collect Annie and Clarabelle by 7 o'clock and arrive at the platform about 8 minutes later. Thomas will depart on his branch line at 7:15, stopping at Dryaw, Elsbridge, Maithwaite, and Hackenbeck before arriving at Farquhar. Meanwhile, Gordon will have reached Vickerstown at 7:04. He'll begin turnaround procedures in the yard before coupling back up to the train at 7:15 and beginning the return journey to Knapford at 7:30. Percy arrives at the north end of the harbor around 7 o'clock. He'll separate the brake van from the train and move it over to the south end. Here, he'll collect the vans that Diesel arranged and head back up to Farquhar at 7:27. Once Percy has cleared the signal, Diesel will then move to the north end of the harbor to shunt the trucks that Percy had brought down. Thomas reaches Farquhar at 7:34. He'll turn himself around in the loop and wait at the station until 7:40, when Percy arrives with the vans. Percy will turn himself around before heading back down the line at 7:45 to deliver the vans to the stations. His first delivery was to Farquhar itself. Followed by a delivery to Hackenbeck, and then to Maithwaite. At 7:55, he'll be heading back up to Farquhar with the brake van, parking it in a siding around 8 o'clock. Diesel will have finished his shunting in the harbor by 7:55 and is needed back up at the quarry. However, with Thomas and Percy making trips up and down the line, he'll have to wait for an opening. At 7:48, Emily makes it to Vickerstown. She'll turn around in the yards and couple back up to the train at 7:58. James, having gotten a good rest, takes his train to the station at 7:50, arriving at the platform at 7:55. He'll wait a few minutes before departing for Vickerstown at 8 o'clock, the same time that Emily is making her return journey. Thomas will return to Knapford at 7:57. He'll uncouple from his coaches and move on to the turntable ahead. He'll then run around the train, coupling back up by 8:04. Gordon will then enter the station not long after. He'll make his way to the other turntable so he can turn around and couple back up to his train by 8:18. Thomas will depart on his second trip to Farquhar at 8:15, with Gordon making his second trip to Vickerstown about 20 minutes later. After parking his break van, Percy will then collect his coaches for the morning harbor train. He'll have the coaches at the platform by 8:09 and depart by 8:15. Along the way, he'll make stops at Hackenbeck, Maithwaite, and Elsbridge before arriving at the harbor station at 8:32. Percy will then run around the train and depart for his return journey at 8:40. Thomas will reach Farquhar at 8:34, turn around and make his way back to Knapford at 8:40. At 8:46, Emily will enter Knapford, and 2 minutes later, James will enter Vickerstown. The two will go through the process of running around their trains and depart by 9 o'clock. From this point on, Thomas, Gordon, James, and Emily will run the same schedule throughout the rest of the day, with some exceptions. So, to avoid repeating myself, I'll be mostly glossing over the remaining entries. Percy is back up at Farquhar at 8:59. He'll run around his train and shunt his coaches back into the siding like before. He'll next be heading down to Tidmouth, but must wait for the all-clear signal. At 9:10, Diesel is given the go-ahead to travel up the branch line. He'll pass through Farquhar around 9:20, clearing the line for Percy, and reach the quarry by 9:29. Percy will depart for Tidmouth at 9:36. He must collect the coaches for Gordon's next train, the Wild Nor'Wester. According to the game, Gordon runs 3 express services: the Express, the Wild Nor'Wester, and the Limited. This is in contrast to what we normally see, as Gordon is regularly seen pulling one service. These additional services are actually references to the Railway series. The Wild Nor'Wester is what the Express is called in the books, and the Limited is a separate service that we see Bear pulling. While it may not be accurate to the show or books, this was a neat little reference that I think the fans will get a kick out of. Although, as far as I can tell, all these services are the same. They all run to Vickerstown and back, stop at the same stations, and keep to the same time. The only notable difference is that the Wild Nor'Wester and the Limited have 6 coaches instead of the Express's 5. Anyway, Percy will find the coaches in the carriage siding at 9:49. He'll couple up and have them at the platform by 9:54. Gordon will then steam in with the Express at 10:10. He'll navigate to the turntable while Percy switches tracks and takes the Express coaches away. Gordon will then back down onto his new train at 10:22 and depart for Vickerstown at 10:35. With the platform clear, Percy will bring the express coaches back to the station for when Gordon resumes the normal express service. He'll then run back to Tidmouth and by 10:40 will come to rest in a siding as he waits for Gordon to return. After receiving his orders, Diesel will begin sorting the trucks in the quarry at 10 o'clock. This task will take him about 2 hours to complete, with him finishing things up by noon. He will then need to head back down to the harbor for his next job. Diesel will make a brief stop at Elsbridge to let Thomas pass and then continue on his way, arriving at the north end by 12:29. Gordon will return with the Wild Nor'Wester by 12:10 and go through the normal process of turning around, backing onto the Express by 12:24. At 12:15, Percy will move from his siding at Tidmouth and head to Knapford to collect the Nor'Wester coaches. He'll be coupled up by 12:20 and take the coaches back to the sidings at Tidmouth Station. This will conclude Percy's jobs for the time being, so he will return to the sheds at 12:28 and rest until his evening duties. By 1:57, Thomas will be finishing his 7th journey on the branch line. He'll run around the train as usual and be ready to depart by 2:15. However, this next trip he will not be heading to Farquhar, but instead to the sports field. A football game is to be held there, and Thomas must take the players and spectators to the field. He'll stop at Dryall by 2:19 to pick up the players, and drop them off at the halt by 2:23. With no turntable in sight, Thomas will run around the train and will see the rare sight of Thomas pulling Eddie and Clarabelle backwards. He'll depart for Knapford at 2:30 and arrive at 2:34, where he'll resume his normal service. At 2 o'clock, Diesel will begin his shunting at the harbor. His main task is to assemble a line of trucks that Percy will take up to the quarry later in the day. This will keep him busy until 3 o'clock, when he'll move from the north end of the harbor to the south. Like Percy, Diesel is given the chance to rest for a bit until his next job, so once on the south end, he'll find a nice cozy siding and rest. At 4 o'clock, Percy will come out of the sheds to resume his duties. His first stop is Tidmouth to collect the coaches for Gordon's next train, the Limited. He'll find the coaches around 4:03 and have them at the platform at 4:09. He will then move back to Tidmouth while Gordon enters the station. As he's done before, Gordon will uncouple from the express and move on to the turntable. While he does that, Percy will come back into the station and take the express coaches back to Tidmouth. Gordon will back down onto the Limited by 4:23 and depart for Vickerstown at 4:35. Percy will then bring the express back to the platform by 4:38 and will run off to a siding at Tidmouth to wait for Gordon. By 6 o'clock, the football game will be nearing its end, so Thomas will need to head back there pretty soon. At this time, he'll be returning to Knapford and going through the process of turning around. Thomas will back down onto the train by 6:04 and depart directly for the sports field at 6:15. Thomas will arrive at the halt by 6:19 to pick up the players. He will run around and leave the halt by 6:25, returning the players to Dryall by 6:28 and entering Knapford by 6:33. Gordon will return with the limited by 6:10. He will move off and couple to the express at 6:23, while Percy comes and takes those coaches away. He will bring them as far as Tidmouth before running around the train. Percy will then shunt the coaches back to the carriage sidings, having them in place by 6:30. After this, Percy will head up the Farquhar for his evening harbor train. He'll arrive at the station by 6:58 and collect his coaches from the sidings, bringing them to the platform by 7:06 and departing by 7:15. Percy will reach the harbor by 7:32 and head back up the line by 7:40, returning the Farquhar by 7:59. The coaches will go back into the siding, and at 8:44, Percy will travel back down the line to collect the goods vans from the station and bring them back to the harbor by 9:06. Percy will then take the brake van over to the north end to collect the trucks that Diesel arranged. He'll be coupled up by 9:24 and make his way towards the quarry by 9:50. Meanwhile, Diesel, with his rest now over, will divide up the vans that Percy brought and shunt them into the sidings. He will have this finished by 10 o'clock and will then follow Percy back up to the quarry. We have now reached the point where services will begin winding down and engines will start retiring to the sheds. At 9:45, James will enter Knapford with his last passenger train of the day. However, he doesn't get to rest just yet as he still has a few more jobs to do. Before anything, he must put away his coaches. So, after making his way to the turntable, he will back down onto the coaches and shunt them back to the carriage sidings at Tidmouth. Gordon will return with his last train at 10:10. As a big important express engine, he doesn't need to bother with shunting his coaches away and will immediately move off to Tidmouth sheds. Gordon will be the first engine in the sheds that night, concluding his day at 10:20. Thomas will finish up on his branch line by 9:57. He'll turn around for the final time and take his coaches away. He'll leave Annie and Clarabelle at the carriage sidings by 10:30 and will be moving into his berth at Tidmouth by 10:33. James will have his coaches put away by 10:05 and will travel back up to Knapford to get ready for the evening mail train, where he'll be picking up parcels as opposed to delivering them. He'll find the vans in Knapford Yard and depart for Vicarstown at 10:27, once again making stops at every mainline station. On his way to the quarry, Percy will stop at Farquhar to split the train. The way up to the quarry is too steep to take the entire load and must be taken in sections. He'll leave with the first half at 10:03. and arrive at the top by 10:11. At this point, Diesel will arrive at Farquhar. He'll come to a stop by Percy's trucks as he waits for the line up to the quarry to become clear. Percy will return for the second half of the train at 10:39, but before heading back up, he'll let Diesel go ahead of him and start for the quarry at 10:47. Emily will arrive at Knapford with her last train by 10:45. Like Gordon, she will leave her coaches at the platform and make her way to Tidmouth Sheds. She will take her berth between Thomas and Gordon and have a well-earned rest at 10:55. Percy will arrive at the quarry 10 minutes after Diesel and rejoin his trucks with the other half. He will then leave Diesel to sort the trucks, heading back down the Farquhar at 10:59 with the brake van in tow. The shunting won't take Diesel very long, and he'll have things wrapped up by 11:54. At 11:17, James will enter Vicarstown to pick up the last of the mail. He will leave the vans in the yard for the morning train and go spin around on the turntable. Before he can head back home, he must collect the line of tankers going to Knapford. He will couple up by 11:31 and then be on his way. Percy arrives at Farquhar at 11:08. He'll shunt the brake van back into its siding and then collect the coaches for the Quarryman shuttle, his last train of the day. He'll have the coaches at the platform by 11:25, and once the workmen are aboard, he'll head back down the line at 11:28, making stops at all the stations on the branch line. Percy will bring the last of the workmen to Knapford at 11:46. Once all the passengers have deboarded, he will run around the train and take the coaches back to the carriage sidings at Tidmouth. With all his work done, Diesel will start making his way back down the branch line at 11:55. He'd normally head home to the Diesel Works, but with a shortage of engines, he finds it easier to stay at Tidmouth with the other engines. He'll pass through Knapford at 12:12, and he will come to rest just outside Tidmouth Sheds at 12:16. James will deliver the tankers to Knapford by 12:06. Relieved to be done for the day, he will happily make his way back to Tidmouth, taking his spot in the shed around 12:30. Percy will have his coaches at Tidmouth by midnight. With all the engines retiring, Percy is eager to head back as well, but he must first collect Gordon and Emily's coaches from the platform. He'll arrive at Knapford by 12:05 and back down onto Gordon's train first. He will then shunt the coaches back to Tidmouth, having them in the siding by 12:10. After another trip up to Knapford, Percy will find Emily's coaches at 12:35 and for the last time will shunt them back to Tidmouth, having them in place by 12:39. With all his duties done, Percy will then move off the train, make his way to the turntable, and join his friends for a good night's rest at 12:44. And that was a full day on the island of Sodor. These engines really do get up to a lot in a single day. There's a lot of fascinating things I found out by doing this. We see Diesel assembling trucks that Percy will take, James and Emily running up and down trains on the main line, and Percy swapping out Gordon's coaches. A lot of interesting stuff. Of all the characters, I found Percy to have the most interesting schedule. While a lot of the other engines just run back and forth with their passenger trains all day, Percy has a variety of jobs, from fetching coaches for the big engines to collecting trucks from the quarry and even running his own passenger service. After making this video, my playtime has jumped to over 80 hours, so I think I've had my fill of the game, at least for the time being. As much as I've been enjoying Wonders of Sodor, it does have its flaws, and a lot of them showed up while getting footage for this video. For some reason, some of the timetable missions aren't available on the menu. And so, to get footage of them, I had to finish one mission, enter free roam mode, and then wait until the mission would naturally trigger. And if that weren't already annoying, sometimes engines would instantly derail the moment I started a mission. The game is also lacking in some quality of life features that you would find in other train simulator games. Dovetail has acknowledged some of the game's issues, and before they move on to any potential content updates, are working on a patch to address some of the complaints. I actually have a lot of thoughts about the game and its future, and I might make a video about that once they release the first update. But what I can say is that for all its faults, I've had a really fun time with the game, and if you are a Thomas fan, you'll likely get some enjoyment out of this. Anyway, that's where I'll end the video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I thank you for watching. Alright guys, bye.